Hi, everybody. Welcome today to my podcast. We have Kirsten Johnson back. She was with me months ago. There she is, beautiful Kirsten. And Kirsten and I met through her Deprogramming from AA podcast, which was like really amazing. And she's also a coach. She's a life coach. And she's going to tell us all about herself. So we're going to talk a little bit about the deprogramming and how she's transitioning into maybe a new phase. And I would like to learn a little bit more about some of the other skills you have so that some of the other people out there in the world can find you. So without any further ado, it's Kirsten Johnson.
Monica, it is so great to be here with you. And I love that you want to bring this conversation to your viewers because I think it's so important after we deprogram or even while we're deprogramming to really think about the rest of our lives and opening up, whether it's with relationships, with business, health, whatever, and to
Right.
not just get stuck in another not system, but to really be expanding our lives and realize that we're no longer trapped. Let's get effing free. And what might that look like? So I love that we're talking about deprogramming and all the other things because we really all want to be free, but free for what? So we can really live while we're here and we can have the courage to be ourselves and to really go for it, whatever's on our heart. So I'm excited for this.
I'm really excited. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here. So maybe a little background, if you tell of the folks a little bit of what you did. Maybe somebody has found this and doesn't know your whole channel. She has a huge channel. And then where you're pivoting to, but maybe just start with the channel itself.
Sure. So I started my YouTube channel in 2012 because I wanted to help people with fear. And for anybody who's thinking about starting a YouTube channel or dissenting AA, which I definitely encourage if you feel that pull. But I was literally too afraid the first 6 months of my YouTube career, my YouTube life, to post any videos. And my videos were literally about overcoming fear. So anybody who's just starting out, I have so much empathy for that. And it's like almost like cringe to think about it. I'm literally teaching people how to overcome fear and I can't even post them. So like that's
Mm,
where I was at, but I also felt this desire inside me to help people break through fear because I was in the journey of breaking through mine. I was overcoming my anxiety disorders. I was like 2 years sober when I started YouTube and I was
mm.
facing all my anxiety disorders. I was like, how do I get the panic attacks to stop? And I just wanted to start sharing what I learned. And so I just started doing that. And I like my first video is about like, what is mindfulness? And I just went on, I've been on a journey of that ever since. And so it's looked different. So there was a time when I was overcoming my freeway phobia. And so I have some videos about overcoming freeway phobia. Those are oddly very popular, or not
Well,
oddly, but like because a lot of people have that problem. So I've just been in the mindset of, can we swear here?
yeah, yeah.
My motto became like when I got sober because I was literally felt like I was afraid of everything. I was afraid to leave the house. I was afraid of public speaking. And I was at these recovery meetings that wanted you to speak. I was afraid of dogs. I was afraid of freeway phobia, like all of it. And so my motto became fuck fear because I just felt like the only way I was going to get out of what felt like a fear was if I kept doing the thing that scared me. And so I kept doing what scared me as long as it was aligned. I don't mean like petting a tiger. I mean like if my heart is saying start a business or start a YouTube, then I do that and I figure out even if it takes me forever to post my first video. And so I just kept doing that. And then the past year, literally just the past 1 year, because we met from the very first day that I posted a deprogramming piece of content on the internet, which was April 6th, 2025. That was my 5 year anniversary of having left AA. I was in AA for 10 years. And at that point, I had been out of AA for 5 years. I had deprogrammed a lot. I thought I was deprogrammed. I was wrong. More was
Mm-hmm,
revealed. And I
mm-hmm.
wrote a post about it, and I was so scared shitless. It was the hardest post I ever put on the internet, was this post on Facebook, and you replied. And you're like, we got another dissenter. I saw it in your
Really?
Facebook
That
group.
was, oh, I didn't know
And you
that.
posted it in your Facebook group, or
Yeah.
and I was just like, and I had already seen your movie, and I was already in your group,
Wow.
and so I remember specifically there was a lot of people had a reaction to that because a lot of people are like the deprogramming conversation for so many of us, it's just been in our heads are, wait a minute, this is all baloney. What the hell is this? What have I been living by? It's all a scam. It's a lie. I've been conned. And then when people start talking about the third rail, which you're not allowed to talk about. You have to stay anonymous.
Oh, I like that. The third reel.
Yeah, so don't you dare touch it. And so when people start, it's more taboo than sex and money, Alcoholics Anonymous, because
Hmm.
it saves lives and you're killing people if
Oh,
you talk
yeah.
about it. So there's so much, because everyone secretly loves sex and money, even if they don't say it. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah,
AA,
yeah.
you can't talk about it. It's like more, it's like up there and like super taboo vibes.
Right.
But we're all thinking it. So when people start talking about it, it's like you're saying exactly. I got so many comments that say, you're saying what I've been thinking for years. I've known
Hmm.
this for years. It's so nice to hear someone say my thoughts. And so there's a lot of us who've been thinking that. So that post like went crazy. I'd never seen anything like that on my own social media. And I spent the past year making hundreds of deprogramming videos very systematically because I wanted to create in my view, like a systematic way to deprogram AA, whether it's by
Hmm.
hearing other people's journeys, like leaving AA conversations, or debunking the mythological origin story because it's all baloney. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love
Someone
that
said
one.
baloney.
When you
I've been
posted that,
saying
I was like, oh my God, I
because
love
I've been
that.
saying it's baloney, it's
Baloney,
bullshit,
baloney.
and someone's like bullshit. I'm like, that's so good. So people are so like creative in this space.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I built out like I spent the past year exactly building out all of this content, creating what I wish existed when I left in 2020. Because when I left AA, it was literally harder than getting sober. And before I left AA, I used to say getting sober was the hardest thing I ever did. But leaving AA was harder because there was no love bombing, there was no community, there was no meetings, there was no
Right.
path out, there was
Yeah.
nobody saying this is the way, there was no friendship. It was the opposite of all of that, just like left, thinking you're
Yeah.
gonna die, nobody
Hmm.
talking to you,
Hmm.
and I don't want that for anybody. And I know that's part of what your journey is, but what's motivated me since the day back in the day when I couldn't even post my fear videos because I was too afraid is if I could make anybody suffer less, if I can help make one person suffer less than I did, or help
Hmm.
them get liberated faster, that's my drive.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty strong drive. And I didn't realize till I started to see some of your recent posts as you decided to sort of, move on and not get stuck in. I mean, not that I was stuck in 5 years of making a film and then stuck in that world, but that you can become obsessed. I mean, I think I did a little bit because I was making a film, but I had community. So as soon as like different from what happened to you, I had people reaching out to me and people like needing to be validated. And so there
Mhm.
was this community ready to talk. Many were not ready to talk on camera, but there were many people that I became friends with that I'm still friends with now 10 years later. And so you didn't have that. And that was a beautiful thing that happened. But I think you really have some other skills too that I would love to talk about. And I don't know if we want to go there right now or you want to still stay on the deprogramming. And then we could, I mean, I love the fact that, you talk about that you had anxiety
Mhm.
and that you used was it a lot of medication and you didn't want to? Like, would you talk about a little bit about, and you also, well, let me just get this out of my head because like, is also that you were like grief counselor, that you studied and got a certificate and you help people with that. So those are just two things. Those are two very big things. Would you like to talk on either of those or both of those?
Yeah, I love learning. I'm a lifetime learner and it's like my favorite thing is to just always be learning. And Um, I've always been that way. And so when I had the anxiety disorders, it was before I got sober. It was like the late 2000, what do we call? Yeah, late 2000s, got sober in 2009. And I didn't know any other way. My psychiatrist told me benzos were the deal. They were non-addictive. He told me all this other stuff that I learned later was not true when
Mm-hmm.
it took me it's I think it's 40% of us who go onto benzos, even for like a month, which is not very long, right? You would think, have a mild to severe withdrawal experience, coming off them experience. And I was in that category.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got sober, I had been on the benzos for 2.5 years. It took me 2.5 years to really come down from them, to come off them. So it was like it was like taking a loan out to a bank with like crazy interest. And I didn't know I
Yeah.
had to pay back the loan, and the interest was really insane. And so at the beginning of my sobriety, I just wanted the anxiety attacks to stop. Like I just couldn't keep waking up with panic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I couldn't drink. It was going to kill me. And I couldn't stay sober like that. So I was like, what the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah.
And the reason why my motto became fuck fear is because I literally felt afraid of everything. It wasn't like well, I guess it's empowering, but it wasn't like I was like, I'm a badass, fuck fear. It was like, no, I am so afraid of everything. If I don't do this, I'm fucked. I'm gonna die. Like,
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So,
and so I went on a whole like, well, my brain, I didn't know I was ADHD my first year of sobriety, but well, I did. I told my sponsor I think I have ADHD, and she said, "No, your only problem is alcoholism and your only solution is the 12 steps." And so I didn't actually get the help that I needed then, but my brain was like extreme ADHD. I
mm-hmm.
had a hard time focused. I couldn't like very hard to like think and start a new job kind of a thing. And so I started a consulting business where I would work for like a month and then have like a month off. And so it was actually like my dream. I wrote down in rehab like my 1 year dream. I had no idea it was going to come true. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's crazy when we write down things sometimes that like that helps steer our mind for it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had like a consulting gig in New York for a month when I was like 30 days sober or whatever. I did my first fourth step out there in New York City. And then when I was 6 months, I went to India for a month. I was studying yoga out there. And while I was there, because my brain wouldn't work well, so I was like, I have to work with my body, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
have to figure out while I'm not able to work very much, I'm gonna figure out my anxiety because my most important thing is to get these anxiety attacks to stop because I
Mm-hmm.
can't live like
Yeah.
this. And even though everyone's telling me it's forever, the doctors, everyone's like, just get used to it, honey. You don't want to take the anxiety meds, so good luck. Like they
Oh,
ripped me off the benzos in rehab. They said those are part of the problem. I'm not giving medical advice here, but
yeah.
I didn't want to get back on the drugs I just got back off of after spending all that money on rehab, right?
Yeah.
So I was in India at 6 months sober. I was studying yoga there, and then down at the pretty famous like Shala. And so there was all like a mecca for these international yogis. I barely knew what to do. It's Ashtanga, right? It's Patabi Joys. And so it's a set of yoga poses in a row, like 100 different poses in order. And I didn't know the order, but you would if you really knew this practice. And I'm so beginner and I'm having anxiety attacks and I'm trying to, and you just show up, you have a time to show up, but there's no teacher. You just have to do them. And I was like,
Wow.
studying the poses. I got a map. I was studying the poses at night, going to class, like not knowing, just
Oh my
panicking. And I
God.
was like, like, it was kind of like being a kindergartner in like the last day of medical school. I'm like, I'm so out of my element. Everyone is
Yeah.
so good. People are like floating on a finger, and I'm like levitating, and I'm like, I'm gonna fall over and down dog because I can't breathe because I'm so anxious. It was like,
Right. Right. Right.
God, it was like it really in a bad way.
Act
And
as
so
if you.
they had talked about these gurus in town. I was like, what they do what? Breathing. So I went and met up with two different gurus when I was there. I got certified in like meditation, advanced breathing, pranayama, all these things, really trying to figure out how to get my anxiety sorted.
Mm-hmm.
So I was willing to do anything.
Yeah.
And um yeah, it was really beautiful because I kept finding teachers in my journey because
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is so important for anybody who's feeling stuck or trapped or who's in the learned helplessness without even maybe knowing it, or somebody tells you something that is dysfunctional or not okay with you. They tell you it's going to be there forever, whether it's
Right.
the alcoholic label
Yeah.
or anxiety.
So true.
And I just thought, well, it can't be true because I can't live like this. Not because like I have to be delusional that maybe I can get better. And
Right.
I kept taking action to figure out. And so I really went down the path hard of mindfulness and like Eastern
Mm-hmm.
wisdom, I guess. And so even like a couple years later, when I had already overcome the anxiety disorders and I moved to Southeast Asia, I went around there and studied too. Like I went to Thailand and studied
Mm-hmm.
um, Theravada Buddhism. Then I went to Kathmandu, Nepal, and I studied Tibetan Buddhism. And then I went to India and I studied dynamic meditations, like at Osho. And I just went to like
Wow.
all these different, oh, and then also in Thailand, I went to Chiang Mai and I studied like at this Tao center. That was really weird. It was like this kind of I don't know, kind of like sexual meditation or
Oh,
something. It was
good.
like Montauk Chia, like for anyone who's familiar
Yeah, I
with
mean,
his
I've
work.
heard some stuff. Yeah,
It was
I
like
just
circulating energy through your body. And like,
mm,
so I just went in every direction I could find because again, I was, I
you're
was
really searching to get off the benzos, right? Was that to
trying to
find?
feel comfortable in my skin. And so I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm gonna like no modality left unturned. I'm gonna try everything. The West
Wow.
said I'm stuck for like fucked forever. I'm gonna see what the East has in store. And I just went and I was like, I have to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the anxiety disorders were resolved, they're not forever. It's like an electrical storm in our body, and we can switch our nervous system and heal trauma and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But after that, when I was around 5 years sober, I got hit with all these emotions. And then I was in this like, you know, emotional, I don't know, I don't like the AA terminology, emotional sobriety, emotional bottom. Like I just was so dysregulated and it was like all my childhood trauma was like up and I was thinking about all the
Mm-hmm.
sexual abuse in my childhood and I was so dysregulated and I was like trying to figure out how to like forgive my parents for doing or not doing what my inner child needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was a hard journey too. And I really, again, I went through like an embodied mindfulness, like learning how to be with my emotions and
Mm-hmm.
regulate my system and
Mm-hmm.
like kind of find my own peace through my breath and through becoming aware of the sensations in my body. And that just set me on a whole like super liberating journey. It was really trying to like heal myself without getting stuck in the idea that I can't get better.
So would you say that, well, maybe just in your words, that was years of all that, yoga and all that stuff down in Southeast Asia that you studied all that? What did you find? And it can be more than one thing, but if you could explain to the audience, like, what did you find that you feel helped heal your anxiety or taught you how to address it?
Yeah, so well, there's a lot of different pieces for anxiety depending upon what somebody is going through. Some of it could be unresolved trauma, some of it could be what post-acute withdrawal syndrome if they're in early sobriety or coming off benzos.
Hmm.
So it could be the nervous system coming back to homeostasis and from being thrown off, right, from alcohol or benzos or
Right,
whatever.
definitely.
For
Hmm.
some people, it's going to be environmental toxins. Mold mycotoxins can be a mofo on the nervous system. So you could even
Hmm.
have a biological threat on your nervous system that has you in fight and flight and has you in anxiety. So for different people, it's going to be for different reasons. But I choose to believe that no matter what, I can get better. No matter what we're talking about,
Yeah.
we can get better. And
Hmm.
it's about trusting your intuition along the way and being led and what stands out to me, what am I hearing that vibes with me. And
Hmm.
so specifically like when I went to India, I did a after I had resolved the anxiety disorders, um, and that was through I kind of call it mindful embodiment. It's through my
Hmm.
breath and calming myself with my breath,
Hmm.
learning how to kind of put boundaries on my own worrying. Like I would set worry dates so I only worried for 30 minutes a week. And I'd write down things I wanted to worry about later and make a schedule in my calendar and then not let my. So
Yeah.
I made up all these tricks. And that my first course is about anxiety, that I made an online course because it was I figured out like how to like
Yeah.
really kind of sort myself, but a lot of it was anchoring my attention to the sensations in my body. And that's
Hmm.
really what changed everything for me. But then when I was in India, I was about 5 years sober at this point, out of the anxiety disorders. And I did this, it's like primal therapy,
I did that.
like with a
Yeah.
primal scream and all
Yeah.
of that. It was
Yeah, I did that.
like this very deep. And at one point, I was just like screaming out, like, because we're basically we're basically in a padded basement. Our inner child has drawn mommy and daddy, and they're blasting techno, and we're in our own little station on like, and we're like, we have tools in front of us, like a lead pipe and all these different things, and we're beating the fuck out of the photo that our inner child drew. I mean, it was like full on, like,
Yeah.
and in the middle of releasing that rage over my
Hmm.
childhood about what did happen or what didn't happen, right? And again, this isn't about my parents. This is about what's still living in my nervous system at that time that I want to be free from.
Hmm.
And what came out in that emotion was like, you can keep your fucking good girl. You can have your good girl back.
Mm-hmm.
fuck the good girl. And
Yeah.
that's when I was like, oh my God, I've been like walking around life with this plastered on smile. Like, I need to be perfect. I need to be a people pleaser. I need to do what you say. I need to not rock the boat,
Mm.
so that I can get loved, connection, all of that. And I was like, fuck the good girl. Like, can I just be myself? And I came out of there like so like cracked open into like the deepest authenticity I had ever known at that point, where I was just like, not that I didn't care what people thought about me, but I was like, I need to be myself. Like
Yeah.
nothing else is it. I'm not like, and if you don't like me, good. Go. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's so crazy. That's another thing we have in common. We have never talked about that. So I did primal therapy too. Once without a proper therapist there with a bunch of AA nuts. Like, yeah, yeah, it was really a bad experience. It was horrific. I was turning 19 and the 13 stepper of Honolulu was there and it was really awful. But
wow.
then my therapist years later, when I was doing like when childhood abuse work, I was in the little padded, little room she had, and I didn't have pictures, but she had like a little soft guy with a face, and that was whoever they were.
Yeah.
But that transformed me. So I was like really stuck, and I had never allowed myself to cry about certain things and feel certain
Mm.
things. And I was like 13 years sober or longer. I don't know, maybe it was 15 years sober. And she was like, I don't think you ever cried about that. And I was like, yeah, no, I didn't cry about that. I just had to be tough, just had to be strong and push through it. So it's
Yeah.
pretty wild, but it was really because she said, under all that rage, you got to get the rage out. Is all the
Hmm.
sadness. So let's get the rage out. And it was a
Yep.
couple hard years. And yeah, it was, yeah. So my having my first child really brought it up for me. And so I had to deal with it. But wow. So okay, so you're there doing identify with that one. So whatever next comes, you did that, and you were transformed, weren't you? Because
100%. And the people, just like when I overcame my anxiety at 2.5 years sober, when I worked through my childhood trauma at 5 years sober and went through that inner child like revolution, like the people on the flip side saw me different. Like they were like, what did you do? You're different. And people,
yeah,
they
hmm
wanted what I had, like what they would say in AA. They were like, wait, you look fun. Like your face is different. Like your whole, like your muscles in your face, like you just you're radiating a new energy. Your whole face looks more relaxed. Like what did you do? And so yeah, each time I went through a major transformation, I wrote down what helped me the most and like how I thought about things, how I shifted my emotions, whether it was through being more mindful of the sensations in my body, whether it was grieving my childhood. I've come to call
hmm
the experience that I went through after the inner child thing, when I was just like at my um, place in Bali by myself.
yeah,
I called it conscious grieving because I would just be there with the grief as it came up. I would just notice it and ride the waves of the grief without thinking about the story. Because the more we tell ourselves the story about the pain, the more we're reliving it and traumatizing ourselves. But if we can catch the story is going to trigger the emotion or something else will, and then we drop the story and we go into the sensations. And then I was like, oh, okay. And I would ride the sensations of grief. And I ended up falling in love with grief. And I grieved my childhood outside of the retreat. The retreat
hmm
cracked me open, but I did the grieving by myself and I would just
yeah,
like hold a pillow and cry. And I would just notice the sensations in my body. And it was the first time that I felt like I was loving myself because it was the first time I didn't betray myself anymore. I was
right,
letting myself be as I am without trying to stop it, block it, or use my mind to intellectualize it or something. And
hmm
so that completely radically transformed me. And after that experience, I also made a course for people. So my first course I made was about anxiety,
hmm
and this course I made was called Rocket Your Recovery. I was still at
You
somebody in
still in
a
recovery? You were,
somebody in AA was like, rocket it into a fourth dimension. So I made it called Rocket Your Recovery, which was like the next level. Because once I actually, because I really look at that phase of my journey as it was the moment between when I stopped running from my pain and I turned around to my pain. Like I spent my whole life running from my pain, right? And the way part of the way that I ran from my pain was by drinking. And that also developed the anxiety disorders because I'm not, I can't feel anything. I don't want to be a part of it, whatever. And
hmm
so I stopped running from my pain. I turned around and I faced it and I let it be. And it was just like, you're allowed. And it was a complete radical, like operating system level transformation where everything is allowed. And you can come up, you can, and I realize that, like, I'm getting crazy chills right now. I realize that most feelings, if I let them, they're like 90 seconds and they go. And if it's a big one, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10
Mhm.
max. But if I
Yeah.
stop tormenting myself by letting my mind tell me stories and wanting the past to be different or whatever, if I
Mm.
just feel what's happening in my body, it moves through me. And I was like, whoa. So that was a course that I wrote and ran, and have, it's called Rocket Your Recovery. And so
Now, what
each,
would you
yeah,
consider changing the name for those who get now those who've left recovery? Like they're not going to find it because it'll say recovery, Rocket. So if it didn't say Rocket Recovery, say if you weren't in AA, what would it be called?
it's really like radical self-empowerment because it starts off with um, anxiety and like your mind, and then it goes into emotions, then it goes into healing shame, and then it ends with speaking and like and
Mm-hmm.
using your story, owning your story and using it to help other people.
That's cool.
um and so it's this whole like mining your own journey for the wisdom and then using it and
Mm-hmm.
kind of owning your narrative. So instead of being like in a victimhood narrative, and yeah, we were all victims at some times, I get it, a lot of us were, but to kind of rebrand or reclaim your story in an empowered way, because the stories we tell about ourselves are going to run our lives, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
story that we keep running, it happened to me, it didn't happen to me, that's going to fuck with us. So having an empowerment, so it really is like a deep emotional healing. That's, I don't like
Mm-hmm.
the word healing even, but it it's a very deep becoming comfortable in your skin emotionally, and that's
Yeah.
what the work is, and it's deep work. And the people, when I ran it like live with like students, it was always women, it was for women. And God, I mean, they popped out the end like whole different humans. And I felt like that was the work that I had to do in order to be authentic. So it was about, I wanted to unapologetically express myself. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to be okay with guilt and anger and shame and anxiety and fear and all of the feelings. I
Mm-hmm.
had to tend to my heartbreak, because underneath all the anger and the rage at my parents or whoever else, society or the abusers that I had come across with, underneath the rage, I was hurt. And
Right.
and underneath the hurt there was my the shame. It was like this feeling that I'm flawed or broken or unlovable. So by making peace with all of that, then I could come to a place of being able to be unapologetically expressed, because I'm not looking to be loved, I'm not looking to be understood, I'm not looking for something for you in order to be able to be myself. I get to bloom as the motherfucking flower that I am, regardless of what you think about me, because I know how to be with myself no matter what comes up. Doesn't mean you won't judge me or shame me or troll me or whatever, but I know how to be with all of my emotions. So you can't trigger any emotion in me that I can't be with. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
that's,
I
to me,
love
that's
that.
like freedom.
Yeah, that's huge. Where can people find that?
My website.
So it's on your website, Kirsten
Yeah.
Johnson?
Yeah. People misspell my name all the time. So it's Kirsten, Kirsten, and then like a dash, a hyphen, a dash, Johnson.com, Kirsten-Johnson.com. But
Okay.
what's even easier for anybody who wants to vibe anything, if you are in your deprogramming era and you're trying to get 12-step ideology out of your head, which I definitely recommend that journey. All of my deprogramming content is free, including a full 8 hour, 6 module, eight, is it 8 module? 8 hour, 8 module deprogramming course, including workbooks, guides, audio experiences, checklists, all the fucking things. It's all free at sobrietybestie.com. I turned sobrietybestie.com. It's not my website anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It is the deprogramming portal where everything is free. There is a button when you go there up top if you want to click Kirsten's current work. That'll take you to my new website where you can see courses and anything else that I'm doing now, which is typically around courage and being your fucking self,
Yeah.
unapologetically, even if
Wow.
you're trolled,
Yeah.
even if your
Yeah.
mind is the one trolling you, right? And so yeah, I definitely encourage anybody who's deprogramming to go to Sobriety Bestie. It's all free. I just want to, that's like wrapped up as a bow as my gift to people deprogramming. It's like so many of us, when we're on that deprogramming journey, and rightfully so, we come out of that high control coercive system, Alcoholics Anonymous, and we feel very distrustful of anybody leading anything, any group. Any
Mm-hmm.
methodology, any ideology, any system, we're kind of anti it. So I wanted to lower the bar and make it really easy for people to get free without having to worry about it, what you think about me. If you don't like me, go in there, check it out, bounce. But you don't
Yeah.
have, there's no barriers to get liberated from AA. And so that's there. And if they want to see my other work, they can do that too.
This stuff that you're doing is really, really powerful. When I was leaving, I think I've said this before, but as you were talking about all the visual stuff, I thought of all people had was text. They had text on a YouTube channel that was like fuzzy stuff and guitar music, or you could spend your time on orange papers, but there wasn't a face or a person that was talking to you like now we have. And you came along and it's like there's other people, but it's really helpful. And it's helpful for people to leave. It's very validating. I mean, there's people that said, there was never anybody that like validated these feelings. Would you like to touch on, as you're exiting or like moving away from this, what happened? Were people supportive? Did you have trolls? Did people turn on you just because you weren't going to do this forever? The
Exiting
deprogramming stuff?
AA or transitioning out of being centered on deprogramming.
Which one would you like to touch on?
Um, Well, okay, I'll talk about my transition out of focusing solely on deprogramming.
Okay.
So I really feel so strongly, and you probably heard it through my story in various different ways so far. I do not believe in forevery. I do not believe in forever recovery. I don't care if we're talking about a broken leg. I don't care if
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about childhood trauma. I don't care what it is, anxiety disorders, because when you believe the lie of forevery, that becomes your reality a lot of the time. Now, it's not a rule that what you think and what you believe becomes your reality, but that's where it guides you. So if you think you have to go forever, you might keep going forever. What I found is, like, for me, I'm not recovering from anything.
Okay. Take two. There you go.
What has, I'm curious, what has it been like for you because you left AA and there was nothing there for you, and you went through your own emotional journey of leaving AA. What was that like for you?
It was easy. It was really easy to leave. I was there 37 years. That's a long
Mm,
time. 36 years and didn't drink anything like for another year and whatever. But that's a really long time. And I did so much work in there about the safety stuff. I did so much pushback inside it that they pushed me out. It's
mm,
like I started, it was like shrinking inside. So it
yeah.
wasn't warm and fuzzy, and there was a lot of hate towards me and a lot of toxicity. So it kind even my husband said, you need to leave. Like you need to leave to do the work or do make it safe or then make a film. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you got to leave. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And I didn't even like kind of think that way, but then it happened. So I had plenty of trolling, and there were some really bad ones. Like there was one woman who was trolling people that the two of them fought so bad that they had to go to court, like in person. There was that kind of fighting going on the internet for X Tupper, and
Yeah.
oh my God, it was like so crazy. But for me, it wasn't at all like you. We were very different with the experience, but there were other things. I mourned a lot of the years that I spent, the time that I spent, how much I gave, how it affected
Mhm.
my relationship with my father, my mother, my sons, some of my in-laws who were so fun and great people. And they were like, "Yeah, you were nuts, Monica. Yeah, you were. We're really glad you left." Like I remember one of my ex's husband's brother who passed. He was like, "No, no, we're really like really glad you were." And I was like, "Really?" He goes, "It was really that bad?" He goes, "Yeah." So,
Yeah.
even though I thought it was sort of a moderate and it wasn't judgmental, but yeah, you are. If you're a
Yeah.
hardcore stepper, you're judgmental about people who drink. You're judgmental about like you. Well, I got 40 years. It's like, so what? Who is it? Jamie Lee Curtis. It's like, shut up. Nobody cares because then they have their stardom and then they have their time and they
Hmm.
can speak on the red carpet about their. Oh my God! I just want to. These people.
Yeah.
So there were some really weird times when I went to events where before I drank anything, that I started to feel like I was in the middle of two worlds. So I didn't like that. Once that started happening where I didn't drink and yet I wasn't in AA and I started seeing people like just enjoying and I was like, there's a glass of water. And I was like, wow, I'm like a freak, like a fucking freak, you know? And I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. We're going to change this. Okay. Just
Yeah.
push through because there were early years when I didn't drink. I like went everywhere. I sat at bars. I sat at, I mean, yeah, at like bars and talked to people and drank. I didn't care. But then there was this, at the end, it was like, no. So eventually when I did have a drink, and I found that I was super moderate after, of course, after all those years and you did all that work. Of course, I think you're going to be a moderate. And plus, I didn't drink for like really long. I didn't drink for 30 years, like hardcore, up in the morning. No, that was not me. It was like 4.5 years as a teenager. And
Yeah.
I did all this deep work. I did a lot of therapy, a ton of work on myself that you're not gonna, and it wasn't perfect. Like there was still more work to do, and I'm doing more now, but it still was like I was gonna be okay. And
Yeah.
so when I was, but there was magic, I have to say, not when I first had the first drink, because that was like that was a big deal. That was like it was almost like I saw some of the words out of the big book. You know, they're at the happy whoopee party, and you hear the clinking of of the
Wait,
drinks.
did
You
you bring
know?
out your carpet slippers and pour milk into your whiskey? Is that what happened?
No, no, but you know what I mean? These ridiculous things that were said over and over in meetings. And I was like, oh, wow. Because I drank so young. I
Yeah.
drank as a teenager. I didn't get to drink as an adult.
Did
And
your
then I really,
doorknob help? Did the doorknob help you with that first drink?
no, but it was like so much, you know, I hated all that stuff. Did you hate all those slogans even
So
back then?
it is all such bullshit.
Right. Yeah, really. Like doing parking in the, your disease is doing push-ups in the parking lot. Like, who says this and believes it? Like, I didn't even believe that when I was like young and new, you
Oh,
know, or any
totally.
of my years, or that you're,
Worst day sober is better than your best day drunk. I'm like, what?
yeah, yeah. So, you know, a lot of stuff, but it was a wonderful thing when I couldn't drink a lot of things. I was putting water in wine. Oh, I mean, it was really a crack up. Like I was trying to figure what I could, what I liked even, my taste. But you know what's so great about all those years with no booze is I had a really clean palate.
Mm,
I was a really healthy eater, watched what I ate and stuff, but I like I didn't ruin my taste buds with like smoking cigarettes and whiskey for 30 years. So everything tasted so new and different. And then the for events where I could finally just have a drink and enjoy it. And that took about a year with me trying it and nothing for a month. And I'll have a try. And I remember having a beer with one of the women I interviewed up in Seattle, outside of Seattle. We were up north of there. And we went to some place she took me to have like salmon chowder and a beer. And I didn't really like beer. And I was like, fucking having a beer. Okay. Like, and then so we had it and she goes, what are you doing? You're going to leave some in your glass. And I was like, that's right. Because that's my message to those fucking AA people. I don't need to drink the last drop. I've had enough and I'm leaving that there. And she goes, oh, I'm the opposite. I'm going to show you. And she will, you know, and she drank hers down. But I leave a lot. I'll go, yeah, no, I'm done. I don't want any more and walk away from one. And,
yeah.
you know, it's kind of very empowering,
Yeah.
very empowering.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
don't
so
drink alcohol, but I do that with coffee. I'll not drink the rest of my coffee. It just depends on how much I want, and I know if I drink coffee at a certain time, I won't go to bed. Like
yeah,
it'll take a long time to go to bed if I drink it after a certain hour. So I will leave it if it doesn't feel like it's worth it to me, or I don't want any more, or I'm buzzed enough, or whatever. And so but I love that your journey out of AA was easier than mine. And I love that you're drinking in moderation and you realize it's all baloney. And I love that you and me and the other people who have taken a stand against the AA ideology bullshit, that we have different experiences
mm-hmm,
and that, like what you were saying about some of your family members were like, I mean, yeah, it's funny. I have a family member who also said, I liked you better when you were drunk. I'm like, are you serious? She's like, yeah. But when I was in AA, she's like, yeah, but now you're like,
Were you like
It was
a
like,
say what
better
was your
when I
problem?
was
What was her
drunk.
problem with you? Was-
Well, because of the way that I acted when I was in AA, there's this
yeah.
spiritual righteousness and this
Yes.
like there's this haughtiness or but you
Yeah.
don't know it and
Spiritual
you're
arrogance. It's
yeah
a
and
great, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
where you're above things or whatever, like you're not a real human and
Right.
you're like fake, you're plastic in a way because you're group think. You're not even really there, but you don't even know it. So I love that there's people who have been vocal about their experience, who have different experiences before, like during their AA time and also after, because it can really speak to different people who are trying to get through what can be a very difficult transition, whether it's leaving or deciding how you want to drink or not, or whatever the part of leaving can be. So I love that our experiences were different. I think it adds to like the variety or the diversity of it.
Yeah, I think it's great for the community of X-steppers that when people come into my group or find your community, that it isn't all the same because no one's the same. And that's the one thing I really try to say is no, there is not one way. There is like I would say, okay, well, it took me at least like somebody a year or this and that. And I would try, people would ask these questions and you try to come back with a pat answer. And I said, Monica, don't say that because it really is an individual thing. And it will take, like, I've seen people leave who are still not deprogrammed because they just left. But they have, I have some people that I know, I just leave it like kind of vague, that didn't. And they say the weirdest stuff. And I'm like, that's not true. It's just
Yeah.
not true. Like, I
Yeah.
love that you don't like the forevery about
Mm-mm.
it. Like, they're even about
Yeah.
healing over your childhood
Yep.
abuse.
Yep.
Like I said to my therapist back then, I said, look, like wherever I go, I see children of the age of, and I start like I would see predators. Like I became hypersensitive, and I said, I hope this is going to stop because I can't live
Yeah.
like this. And she said, oh yeah, it's going to go away. It'll totally. You're still
Yeah.
going to be have a good read on predators, Monica. We're
Yeah.
going to see. You're going to
Yeah.
know them. We're going to have a
Yep.
sense of it. Like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean,
Yeah, I don't believe in forever at all. I don't believe in forever recovering from anything. There might be exceptions to that. I'm not forever recovering from anything. I'm not in recovery from anything. I've recovered from alcohol addiction, from anxiety disorders, from childhood trauma, from phobias, whatever. I've recovered. I might have something in the future that I'll need to recover from again. That's fine. But I've recovered from everything. Right now, I'm not recovering from anything. I'm just like a human. And and even deprogramming AA, focusing on it. When I did a video that gave like with it came with a checklist, like a 64-point checklist of all the different steps according to like cult recovery specialists and whatever. Although I do hold all experts like with a grain of salt, or like I don't pedestalize experts and their ideology or what their ideas are.
yeah.
I won't go there again
Mm-hmm.
after being Bill Boozled for 10 years.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I went through a checklist and I saw like in November, I did this like around Thanksgiving. I highlighted what I had left and the things that I had left to do. I wasn't ready to give up at that time, but they included no longer centering the group, no longer recreating group dynamics, and other things that would have me move through deprogramming as a focus. It doesn't mean I'll never talk about deprogramming again. Here I am today with you talking about deprogramming. It's a
Right.
part of my story, but the whole point is it's a part of my story. It's not my story. That was my last piece in my own deprogramming journey because I was very vocal and my whole focus was on creating deprogramming content and deprogramming resources. And I love that those exist and I do not see how much more I could create to add to those. Like it's done. The
Mm-hmm.
same way, the same way that like I did a half marathon in 2012 in Kauai, the same way when I crossed the finish line, I didn't keep running. Like when you're done, stick a goddamn fork in it. It's like when your movie, you didn't keep editing your movie. At some point, the art, the work, the whatever is done. And so I feel like my deprogramming work, I made it
That's
in a
great.
systematic way. I feel like, sure, I can still do interviews. Sure, I can still, there's not much more of the AA history I care to dig up. I
Yeah.
did a lot about it. And it's
Mm-hmm. You
like,
sure
sure,
did.
there's more I can find, but I'd say that the brunt of it's there. It's good enough. It's done. It's shipped. It's ready. And the next step is for me to not center AA anymore. And that's the next step for me to be out of recovering from recovery, is that it's not centered in any way in my life. It's a part of my story, just like anxiety disorders are. We talked about those today. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
focused on anxiety disorders, but I have a lot of videos on YouTube. Only one third of my videos are about deprogramming. Two thirds are probably mostly anxiety, but the majority of my
Well,
videos are really about anxiety. But that's not focused for me either. But I've helped a lot. I mean, that's what for years and years and years, that's what all my coaching clients came to me for.
mm-hmm.
And that was like what I've been the most proud of is like, first of all, I have to convince someone that their anxiety is not forever and they can get better because we run these stories in our heads. So somebody listening right now that might be running a story like, because of my childhood, I can never get better. That's such a common lie that we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm being careful. For me, that's a lie. You can choose what it is for yourself. But I found that when I can help somebody break their false belief of why they can never get better, boom, they get better so immediately after that. Because first, I have to help them not believe why they can't get better. And then, then there's a period of time and then the tools start working like even faster and then they radically transform. And so that's been like one of the biggest joys of my life is helping people who had anxiety as an identity, thought they would be forever anxious, helping them break their identity with anxiety. Ironically, I was in AA when I was doing this work and I didn't understand the alcoholic identity and how that was ruling me. But
Mm-hmm.
I to get someone to stop saying I'm an anxious person, like I had to like
Yeah.
really, really work with them to give up the identity that they don't want. You're paying me
Yeah, I
all
have
of
a
this
couple of
money
people in my life I know who have
and
that. Yeah.
you're clinging to an identity that you of someone you don't want to be. It's not going to work. So we can't cling to these identities of who we don't want to be and expect to get better. But the problem is we don't even think we can get better, and so we identify as something that we don't want, and then we don't even take the action to actually break free. So identity is such a huge piece in the like moving through whatever it is we're moving through.
And yeah, I agree. And I think the story that we tell ourselves when you're in AA, the story that I told, that it was really freeing to change that story to use new language. The word language was really important, which was taught to me by the people who left before me, who became professionals or experts like Stephen Slate, who was part of the Freedom Model beginning, and cool young guy who I met in New York in person. And he started talking, and I was like, wow, what kind of cool language you got there. You like
Yeah.
to have new words to say things like problematic alcohol use. Like it takes so
Yeah.
much longer to write it online
Yeah.
than say an alcoholic or addict, but I try
Yeah.
and try to use that and to tell my story, Kevin and I back and forth, of okay, let's tell our stories with non-AA language. Like, what were you like? What happened? And you could see that we were both trying to stick ourselves, kind of shove yourself into this square hole, like, you know what I mean? Or I really didn't fit, but they were trying so badly because they were plummeting in numbers in the 60s, which I'm sure you know, and that they got this idea that they would go to these grade schools, and they came to my grade school to plant a seed, Kirsten. I wanted to just boom, like when I
Just stab myself in the face.
like when I found that out, and that was from Gabrielle Glaser's book. So getting to know her, that when she was writing the book, she interviewed me, and she found out so much about AA historically that I didn't know
Yeah.
that stuff, and I was like, wow, like why would you come and talk to sixth, seventh, and eighth graders? Okay, so we were drinking in the park across the street, it's Irish Catholic neighborhood. What
Yeah.
else do you expect? It's the late 60s, 70s. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I shouldn't have been drinking like that when I was a teenager. But anyway, and so, but to tell the story in a different way and
Yeah.
call it self-medicating, was self-medicating myself because I had trauma that I was totally like not addressed. And I was in a
Hmm.
lot of pain, and I just needed to,
Yeah.
have fun. But or numb the pain.
Hmm.
And there were plenty of people that were just having fun. So, but to tell the story in a different way is really, really powerful and empowering.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was thinking also about that you became a grief. This is totally pivoting, like in another part of your expertise or something. Would you like to talk a little bit about why you did it and what brought you to wanting to become a grief
Grief.
counseling or expert? What do you call it? That you
Uh, I did the grief recovery method. I think it's a company out of Australia. I'm not sure, but my trainer was Australian and she came to Bali and we did it in Ubud, Bali. So a grief recovery, like certified
Mm-hmm.
counselor or whatever they call it. It's not actually a counselor though. Like I don't have that certification. I'm not a therapist.
Right.
So at that point specifically, like the way that I look at my own sobriety is, well, even to back up before that. So I have been diagnosed autistic and ADHD. And so that when I understood autism and ADHD, it really speaks to my entire life, how my nervous system was always different than
Mm-hmm.
most of the people around me. Like
Mm-hmm.
sensory sensitivities, I am picking up on sounds, sights, smells. I even like when I used to go to the rave, I had synesthesia where I would actually like see the music. I knew nobody around me was seeing the music, but I'm telling you, I'm seeing the layers, the hi-hat, the vocals, all of the so when I'm dancing like in front of the speaker, like sensory seeking, all of the music is going through me. I'm visually seeing it sober. Like I'm not on drugs or
Right.
anything.
You're not on any
No,
psychedelics. Yeah.
no. And so I
Wow.
always knew I had a different sensory experience than a lot of the
Yeah.
people around me, but that's also like hypersensitive. And I also had social differences, but I didn't quite get it. I made it up to be that something's wrong with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also I had the childhood sexual abuse, but 9 out of 10 of us who are autistic are sexually abused by the time we're 18. That's 3 times higher than non-autistic
Oh,
girls.
wow.
And so the alcohol medicated my social differences. It made me fit in. It made me have friends suddenly. It made me able to socialize. It made me able to have boyfriends and feel a part of something that I
Mm-hmm.
had never really had before alcohol. And also it medicated my trauma, but also it medicated my sensory sensitivities. So the world was no longer as loud for my system. I wasn't as
Mm-hmm.
dysregulated anymore by just noises or whatever sensory experience. And so alcohol really medicated all that. And so understanding all of that, and then which I didn't understand when I was doing the grief recovery, but the way that my sobriety kind of played out was I felt like it was a journey of me befriending one emotion at a time because I was so shut down and numbed out by the time I got sober. I
Mm-hmm.
call it like alexithymia, where you're like completely out of touch with your feelings. And also alcohol damages the interoception, which is your ability to feel what's happening inside of your body. It's one of the senses that we normally don't talk about, right?
Yeah. That would
There's
make
more,
sense. I could see that with people who are heavy
yeah,
drinkers. Yeah.
it literally damages that part of the brain so that when
Mm-hmm.
you're when just the act of not drinking, the brain recovers on its own. So that's rebuilding as a fact of just not drinking. So your
Mm-hmm.
ability to feel is growing just as a fact of not putting alcohol into your brain anymore, into your system.
Yeah.
And so like the first emotion I was really dealing with when I got sober was anxiety, obviously. And then this different emotions would come up. And then one at a time, it was like, then after that, it was loneliness. And I had to make friends with loneliness. I felt like it was a journey of befriending my feelings. And then there was
Mm-hmm.
a season where it was like guilt. And I really changed my relationship with guilt and then
Mm-hmm.
shame and then rage with the inner child stuff and then grief. And so after I left India and I was in this like conscious grieving experience, as I called it, I fell in love with grief because it is so loud. It quite frankly, it reminded me of my experience at the rave in the 90s in front of the speaker that I loved
Mm-hmm.
that. Where because grief is so loud and so rich, it's all consuming. So when a grief wave hits, if I just close my eyes and I notice it, it's like I'm almost like I'm even convulsing in a way. There's so much energy in
Yeah.
my system. My
Yeah.
heart's like exploding, my throat's tight, and I'm just crying. And it's just like, it is such a sensation rich
Mm-hmm.
experience, just like
Mm.
the rave was. And so I became friends with grief and I learned to love it. I was like, I don't prefer it because it's draining and I feel drained after. The only
Yeah.
reason I don't like grief is if I torture myself by thinking about what it is. My dog's
Mm-hmm. And
dead,
don't go to
so
the
and so did
feelings.
this,
Like think,
whatever.
yeah,
Then
up
I
in
will
your
go. But if I catch the vibe, whether by thinking about it or I'm triggered and I close my eyes and I just feel the waves of grief, I learn to love it because it is so rich. And so, like, this was like 2015, 5 years sober, I fell in love with the feeling of grief. So then 2 years later, when the lady was coming to do the grief recovery method certification process, I signed up for it because I had completely transformed my relationship with all of my emotions at that point, but
mm-hmm.
including grief. And I was like, I really want to know how to be a good griever, like according to like a methodology. Plus,
Yeah.
somebody actually, it was the guy who spoke at the first AA meeting I ever went to. I thanked him when I turned one. I called him, and then he ended up, oh God, he gaslit me and hit on me. It was like got weird later because you know how some of those people are in AA. I digress. He recommended that I go to the grief recovery method because he was a nurse and he used that methodology and he helped people on their like way out when they're dying and stuff. And
Mm.
so
Wow.
I wanted to learn how to, because I had just grieved my childhood. I was like, all right, well then I want to be ahead of the curve and I want to I want to like prepare. And so one of the core principles in that methodology is what's the hardest for a lot of us when somebody dies is the things that were left unsaid. I wish
Mm-hmm.
I could have told them this. I wish I could have asked them this. I wish
Mm-hmm.
if they knew this. I never told them this or whatever. Or I wish I knew more, like if it was about a parent, about their childhood or this or that or whatever. And so there's this whole concept about living complete so that you complete relationships while they're still alive, while you have time, so
Yeah.
that there's nothing left unsaid, so that when they die, you're not wishing you had said something, like wishing you had got over your pain so you could have told somebody that you loved them or you whatever, right?
Right.
And so I really got interested in that idea. And that was also when I was writing my course, Rocket Your Recovery, and I wanted to learn more about grief because I was teaching about it.
Yeah.
So I had my experience and I always like to study and learn about different modalities and all of the things so that when I teach, I can pull on all these different modalities. Even in this conversation, I can reference what the India guru told me,
Yeah. It's
like in
fascinating.
2010 or the grief recovery thing. But I also I wanted to live my life wisely. And I knew that being skilled with my emotions was a path to be there. Now, look, I can still be a bitch. Like, I can get triggered and say things I don't mean. I didn't become perfect as a result of any of this.
We-
But the quote that has always like hit my heart the most is this nurse who worked with people who were dying. And she said that the people who are dying on their way out, like the number one regret of the dying, right? She wrote a book called The Top Five Regrets of the Dying. And the number
Mm.
one regret of the dying is, according to this nurse and her, I think she's Australian, is people would say, I wished I had had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me.
Mm.
And that is like my motivation.
Oh, really?
So
It's one of the top ones
well, I don't
that,
want to get to the end of my life
oh, yeah,
and regret not having the courage to live a
to
life
try.
true to myself.
Yeah.
And so that just really drives me is I want to I want to have the courage to be me. And part of that is to make sure that I don't leave any conversations incomplete. Now I'm actually thinking, oh, there is two relationships right now I'm incomplete in. So it's reminding me that I can go like say the
Yeah.
things I want to say in case they die tomorrow or I do, you know? And I
Yeah.
just think it's wanting to be wiser with life emotionally because emotions have been so hard for me.
Yeah, I was really curious about it because I have told you this, that I had 7 people die in 18 months. And and I would get these letters from my sister's hospice that I could have joined a group and could have been on Zoom. And I was like, it was down in San Diego and I was like, oh, you should do that. Like it was like it was a short thing, but I think it would have been good. I didn't do it. And then I did some work last spring with a guy and I said, I was beating myself up kind of for it. I should have done it. He goes, well, maybe not. Maybe it was good that you didn't do it because you're sitting around listening to other people's stuff. Like you're not just bringing your own stuff to it, but you're in a group, listen what other people are bringing to it. And it was like a really different take. I was like really judging myself that I didn't do it, that I didn't get a grief count. And I really felt like I needed. I was talking to people. I said, I think I need a grief count. Like by the time the seventh one died, or the sixth, or the fifth one,
Mm,
because there was a couple were sudden death. And anyway, but then I still like at this point now, I think that I could use some of it. Like I've been thinking about it and talking to one of my friends when she's done EMDR. She lost her baby when he was a year old during COVID, not from COVID, but from not bringing the baby to the hospital because everybody said, don't bring the baby to the hospital because there's COVID going on there. So she and I talked recently, and there's all kinds of modalities that I haven't tried. And that's
yeah.
one of them, other trauma that I've been through. And there's a lot of estrangement going on in our country today, and even in my own life. And I've had some with my parents, but lucky for me, and I chose to reconnect with both my parents and with my mother much sooner. But it was really Kevin, my husband, who pushed. My father had been kind of estranged, not I never not wanted to talk to my dad, but I didn't want to help. Like I would have helped him so differently. Like I cried about this a lot. If I was not in AA, I would have helped my father in a very different way a lot sooner. In the
Mm-hmm.
end, I was stuck with it as he like didn't plan for anything out in Vegas. Guy loves the ocean. He winds up in the desert. But anyway, I was like, Dad, how'd this happen? You don't like the desert. But he knew what he was doing because there's a lot of care out there because there
Mm.
was a lot of cheap land. And so they built all this assisted living. They have homes for seniors. They're much smarter. LA could learn a lot from what they did out there. I saw what my father did. But I got to do that with my dad. My brother didn't talk to him for 17 years. My sister was estranged from my mother for like over 5 years when my mom died suddenly in Germany. Like there were, so I just think that I made a joke about I'm done working on myself. I think maybe you and I were talking about it. Was it you and I were
Yeah.
just on the phone that,
Yeah.
I did all those years in AA and I actually did the lot of therapy that I did was really good work. I read books that were like self-help, incredible books that helped me a lot, transformed me. I needed it. I was a reader and all that. But then it got to a place where I needed that break and say, I ain't working on myself. I'm done. Like I'm just done. And I got to live. I just have to live in this body with
Mm-hmm.
as not a stepper, as not a, all that stuff I put on myself. And then I started, then after a while, I was like, I could use a little work. I need a little tweaking. You should be doing some chakra centering. Like you need to meditate again. You need some grounding. You need protection going into this city council meetings that I'm going in. Toxic places in government. They're just awful. They really are. No wonder good people don't want to get involved. There are some good people involved in government and politics, but it's as soon as I started doing it, Kirsten, it was like magical. Just doing grounded meditations, doing prayer protection before I go into the room. And it's like, wow, yeah, it works. So anyway, big long tangent. About grief, about that. I think I need something more with that, like that. So I was really curious about your experience. So please talk some more about it if you.
Yeah. Well, it's just I think the number one thing I would say just is not being afraid of our emotions, including grief, and not being afraid to feel the grief and getting out of our head and going into the sensations in our body. Like when the grief comes, so the story will come. I should have done this different. I regret I wasn't on the Zooms or whatever the fuck the story is. Closing your eyes. This is like what I do and what I teach, right?
Yeah.
Closing your eyes and noticing where is it? Where are the sensations? Like where do you physically feel it? Grief is usually in my body, in my throat, in my heart, and maybe even in my gut. And I just notice where it is. And then I'm just kind of like noticing it. And if I'm crying or whatever. And I'm not thinking about the thing anymore that stirred it up, but I'm letting
Mm-hmm.
the
Interesting.
emotions roll through me because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like so much of that it doesn't like literally get stuck, but when I can move through my grief, there's a new life on the other side of it. It's like the life after the storm, right? Like everything thrives after a big rainstorm. And
Yeah.
it's like, but the grief can like lock us up and shut us down and make us afraid to connect or just kind of like I don't know, keep us a little bit stuck or less vibrant than we could be. And so I would say number one is like not being afraid of our emotions. And if the grief comes, let it come.
Mm.
And no stories about who we should be, what we should have done, this or that. Just like, where is it? And just like let the grief be there. We're having an experience in our body and just to allow it and let it move through it. It's when we start to, oh no, I shouldn't feel that way. It's like, but you fucking do.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Like with my dad and my mom, when they died, I did that. I really did that. That was a really healthy process. I just let myself cry. And I would start with the, oh, I wished I would have, and then it would just come. And for some reason, maybe because they're your parents or because there was healing and real, I don't even want to use the word closure because I don't think that's a good word. I mean, they were your parents but just the ability to deal with that and to, um, be okay with it. And sometimes there's other stuff that I'm not okay with still
Yeah.
about what AA did, what AA influence and ideology did to affect certain relationships in my life. I'm pissed about it still. Like it's coming up again. So maybe that's what it is. It's coming up again where I thought, okay, we put this to bed. You were angry about it. You did the work. You talked about it. And now I'm mad again. I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck you guys. You are a sick bunch of motherfuckers. You are awful to tell a woman who is pregnant. This, as I was heading out of AA, as I was leaving, there's a beautiful 30-year-old pregnant that her sponsor was telling her she should be at the meeting when the kid is no, you shouldn't be at the meeting. Your child is more important. Your parents, your relationships are more important. The nonsense, that's such a cult. All cults do that. That this is more important. Going to your, got to get to your, no, you don't. Like back then when Bill and them, they met once a week. Once a week. I don't know why these people are going every day. I don't know why they're there at 6 in the morning. Like, what are you doing at 40 years still going? What are you doing at 20 years still going? So, but anyway, it's come up again, some of that intertwining in my life, and I'm not happy about it. So, I'm going to head off and go to a retreat in Colorado in a couple of weeks where I'm going to deal with some of this stuff. But, I'm, just open. I'm open to healing. Like I love Western
Yeah.
medicine. When my little grandson was sick, you do all that, and then I believe in other stuff too. That if it works, are your parents alive? Are both
Hmm.
your parents still alive today?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so in
And the grief work is, I believe, a big part, not the only thing, of what helped me forgive them. All my
mhm,
all of my spiritual teachers in the East always said, uh, let me clarify. I'm not positioning myself as done at all, like nowhere near done. But they always joked and said enlightenment is forgiving your parents. So I always thought that was like a
mm,
goal, was
mm,
how can I heal enough so that what they did or didn't do doesn't bother me.
that's
And
beautiful.
and I think it's for anybody with their parents, right? Because it's
Yeah.
the childhood stuff is what shapes us so much.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who like create our buttons, right? That later get pushed in relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
So I always thought of forgiving my parents as like a spiritual goal for for my own evolution, but
Mm-hmm.
also for my relationship with them. And it wasn't until I left AA that I can do that. A lot of people in AA said you never will, and a lot of people in AA told me to not talk. They say they don't limit who you hang out with because they're not a cult. Oh, I was told repeatedly by many people to not hang out with my parents.
Wow.
And so for me, like there was a period where I went through and I was able to move through everything that was standing in my way that was from the past, and I no longer hold any of the past. There is none of that with me and my parents.
Yeah,
I'm
that you're
closer.
lucky. You're really lucky.
No,
You're fortunate. No.
it's not luck.
Yes, yes. No, I kind of changed after I said you're lucky. But then I said no, you're fortunate because you
It's
did.
not it's not even fortune.
Yeah. Tell me how you're
No,
feeling. Yeah.
it's intention.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was a goal. It's just like I wasn't lucky that I overcame my anxiety disorders. I decided that's what I wanted to do. I
Right.
set my GPS on that motherfucker and I was like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go here. So that's what I did. That's no. So it's so I want to be like it's a deliberate choice that
Yeah.
I want to work towards this because it's
Mm,
important to me for many reasons.
right.
And that was where I set I didn't know how, I never know how, right? But I was like, I want to forgive my parents. I want to overcome my anxiety. I want to
Mm,
leave or leave AA. I want to deprogram AA and be free. So these are goals that I kind of felt like were impossible or whatever. But I'm like, no, I'm going to set these kind of
mm-hmm.
emotionally impossible goals. And then I'm just going to see which books vibe with me, which teachers, which practices I feel drawn towards, do those things. A huge unlock for me was understanding I'm neurodivergent and then understanding that maybe people in my family are as well. So to actually view people in my family and people in my childhood and stuff as maybe they just had different brains versus they meant to do something or it was personal, that was a huge unlock for me. To
Mm-hmm.
really have empathy and compassion for just the way that different people are naturally or that they've conditioned or trained themselves to be, and to know that it's not personal, and to stop viewing specifically with my parents, to stop viewing them as my parents and start viewing them as imperfect humans like me.
Mm-hmm.
And would I want to be judged for how I was? Like, they had kids in their 20s. Would I want to be judged for how I behaved in my 20s for the rest of my life? No. Are you
Mm-hmm.
kidding me?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, really.
and just to like, yeah, just to really be able to see them as humans and to understand that, yeah, people with different brains. I thought I wanted them to be different so that I could have been different or had something different or something could have happened or not happened or whatever. I think this is like a universal theme a
Yeah.
lot of us have.
Yeah.
And really where I've also come to is I have this like insatiable thirst for learning and understanding things. And I wouldn't have like some of the grit and the courage and the determination and the independence and the things that I really value about me that are at my core if I had grown up in a different environment. And like Wayne Dyer was like one of my first ever favorite spiritual teachers, right? And he used to say that he jokingly had a conversation with God before he was born. And God said, "What, little Wayne, what do you want to work on in this incarnation?" And he said, "Self-reliance." And he's like, and then so that's why God put me in and out of orphanages for the first 10 years of my life so that I could learn self-reliance. And it's just like, whoa, that's how you're
Oh,
framing this. And and so I just like, right, he wouldn't be able to be and do what he feels called and led to be and do had he not been in the training ground that he had been put in, that otherwise could be a victim story or trauma or whatever. And so I always think that's why I'm like, fuck Forevery,
mm,
man. Fuck the
that's
story. Yeah,
interesting. Huh?
yeah, we were victimized, but let's just move the fuck on and let's just
Yeah.
cultivate the lessons from it, learn what we can learn from it so that we don't have to repeat it and that we can become wiser from it and try to move forward with that wisdom. And maybe even, I know AA does this, but in general, I think it's good too. How can I also use that wisdom that I cultivated from my own less than loving experiences to actually benefit other people as well, not just myself? And that's really fucking cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I definitely got to a place too where I was glad for my grit. Uh, People who knew my sister and I, they would be like, this was Hawaii AA. They'd be like, you had different parents, the two of you, the way you talk about your upbringing, you know what I mean? So siblings will
Yeah.
be, right?
Well, I think also AA positions our childhood as way more traumatic than we might have considered it to be before we got to AA. I didn't realize how bad everything was until my sponsor highlighted it all for me, and then everything was so bad.
Oh my
And and
God.
and so there's really is this like highlighting of and like pedestalizing of trauma and inventory and all this like focus on like looking with a mic like for everything that was ever bad that you part in everything and it's just being under a microscope and it's like when you amplify it, when you put all your energy and focus on it, it makes it bigger. So being out of AA, it's so liberating to not have to focus on every single like crack and flaw and whatever, and to like kind of have a more elevated view and not be overwhelmed by every little, I don't know. I mean, did you ever feel like you were under a microscope in AA with all the inventories and
You know, different experience. Well, the first one was the inventory I did with this woman, Flowbird. She was like a hippie. Oh my God, this was this young people's group that was so freaking weird. I got nothing out of it. That fifth step. It was like I was trying to find stuff that I did wrong. Like I stole some chocolates from Fanny Farmers in seventh grade, and then I couldn't play on the basketball team for 3 months. Like, yeah, there were things I did that was not perfect, that were not great, but, and I wasn't a saint, just like, no one's a saint. But she was a pretty sane older Hawaiian woman who did not do that. So she was more of a less than, and we're not going to hyper focus.
okay.
She even said, like, it was kind of opposite of what you said. But there were other people around me that were like that. Don't, get me wrong. There were
Yeah.
those people. But she was more of a mother. She wanted to, I think, mother me, which she did. And I needed some mothering. I was like 19 years old.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a relationship with my mom. It was 6,000 miles from my home, in New York, in Hawaii. And there was a lot of, she said beautiful stuff to me, like when she said, I never had that happen to me. And so I don't really want to tell you anything wrong. Like she didn't ever victim blame me, or what was your part in it about any of my abuse? She did not do that. She was really loving and very careful about that stuff. So she was more of this, and she was like tough older Hawaiian woman. But um, so it was different with her in the beginning, and yet I don't know. I saw like some of the stuff about the books. Like I was like in the book studies and reading the 12 and 12 and in the studies, and then I was like, you guys are fucking crazy. Like there was just a part of me that just started to just get like at 6 years sober, and I was 24 years old and life was getting better. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go to another meeting where we're going to take the 12 and 12 and we're going to dissect and we're going to apply it to our sex life and we're going to apply it to our money life and we're going to apply it to this part, and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to go how the old timers did it. They did it one and done and they're done, even though I did more than one, fourth and
Yeah.
fifth. But like after third or fourth, I was like, no, I'm done with you guys. No. And I began to read self help books, and they were really good for me. and I needed it because I was kind of a little negative. I was like, I didn't really believe in myself. I didn't have enough confidence. There was things I needed a little help with. But anyway, but it's good that when you can have somebody like you and I, and we have like these really, like in some areas, like really different experiences, and
Totally.
yet here we are, and it really relate to like so much of the beautiful work that you did. And maybe in like wrapping it up, is there another segment here you want to kind of touch on? Anything? The trolls trolling you as you're
Um,
leaving the deprogramming?
Yeah, well, when you were talking about the 12 and 12 just now and dissecting it and all of that, it made me think like, and I don't, maybe other people will relate to this as well, but a lot of people come out of a cult feeling that they're behind, intellectually, socially, culturally, whatever, because they've been so hyper focused on the cult and the doctrine
Yeah.
and no outside literature or whatever. And quite frankly, it's a part-time job for a lot of us, right? I mean, I was participating about 10 hours a week for a decade. So that's a lot of
Mm,
time. And that's a lot
yeah.
of time I wasn't learning other things, doing other things, being
Right.
exposed to other things. Sure, I read other books while I was in AA, and a lot of them, the self-help or whatever. But they were also, a lot of them were focused on AA kind of tangent things like self-help and stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been on quite a learning journey since I've popped out of AA, or specifically even since I've been on this dissenting journey, right? And I think I've definitely shared some of it with you where like in September I studied serial killers for the month
Yeah.
because I realized that I had always been like had a avoidance towards murder and violence in the
Mm-hmm.
news and anything related to like violence and murder. Probably because of my sensory sensitivities and just
Mm-hmm.
feeling things extremely deeply and just not wanting to connect with that. And so I spent the month of September, I was like, well, why don't I lean into what the fuck I'm afraid of so that I can grow, right? So I was specifically looking for areas where I could improve myself and
Mm-hmm.
not have these limits of things that I can't be with. And so I studied serial killers for the month I got into it. I was like Charlie Manson, watching the interviews of him in prison and stuff, but like all of
Yeah.
them, not all of them, but enough of them that I caught the vibe of like the patterns and the differences and the
Yeah.
there's the trail side killer, then there's the one in New
Oh
York
my
that
God.
would
Oh my
shoot
God.
people,
Yeah.
was his son of Sam, and like so I just went through and I studied them all. I was like, wow, okay, so a Ted Bundy, ooh, scary vibes. So so yeah, and then like over like Christmas, over the holidays, but like I'd say December and January, it was war. I had never looked into war before, so I looked into wars. I got particularly fond of World War II and like really
Mm-hmm.
went deep. I was like, oh, this is fascinating, and
Yeah.
so
Me too. I was thinking.
I was just like, Hitler was an obvious for like first place entry place to start, but then even looking at like documentaries on bombing Pearl Harbor or Hiroshima or like just
Mm-hmm.
different things and like
Mm-hmm.
then the camps, like reading Viktor Frankl's book, like Man's Search for Meaning and stuff, and just really like there's so many areas of my life, and a lot of people who leave cults, this is also true for them, where
Yeah.
I just wasn't learning things. I feel stunted intellectually, emotion in certain ways because I was so hyper fixated with my time outside of work on Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's been an incredibly like, I mean, I'm still on all sorts of topics right now, but I kind of pick a topic every month and I just explore
Mm.
that topic and go deep. I did wars for 2 months because there was a lot of wars, and World War II was like its own month,
Yeah.
and there was so much content on it because they had video cameras and stuff. But
Yeah. True.
even like politics, I didn't really ever vibe with, so I never really like there's certain leaders I didn't want to learn about, but even
Mm-hmm.
going deep on like Nixon, for example, and like Watergate, or even his like even um the Vietnam War, I'm like, oh snap,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, we were always corrupt? What the fuck? I was like in this myth that like we were the good guys. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Kevin and I
So
watched
I
all that
feel
too.
in so many ways, I feel like
Crazy.
I'm born again, like popping out of the womb, like what the fuck is the world outside of a cult and outside of an alcohol addiction, where my brain is working and I'm thriving and I'm looking around and I'm learning all these things. And I think part of that for sure is having popped out of a cult where I was reading one book over and over and over again, week after fucking week. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell? And it's all a
What?
lie. Like, what the hell?
when I was studying at the Groundlings, it was comedy, right? And they said, Monica, you're really great, and this, but you need to learn more current events. You need to like read a
Totally.
paper once in a while, listen
Totally.
to a little news, so that because you're gonna back then when everything was really everybody made fun of everybody,
Yeah.
that you needed to read a little more news. And like I'd
Yeah.
make jokes like, well, now I have plenty of knowledge
Yeah.
now, but back then I was like clueless. And it
Yeah.
didn't really, I just really stayed away from it. We even went like the First World War, like Stalin. Like Kevin and I were kind of in a
Yeah.
similar what you did like from
Yeah.
September on. And we like I was like, oh my God, like no wonder we were like so afraid of communism.
In the
Like, look
Cold
at this,
War.
what Stalin was like, or even Mao. Kevin goes, oh, who's that guy? I was like, let's watch some stuff about like how they got the Chinese, like who was Mao? And it was a
Yes.
quite like I knew a little bit, but not a lot. And so we went to,
Manchurian Candidate, and I'm
yeah.
like, Alcoholics
Oh,
Anonymous. Okay,
yeah,
these are
yeah. We
okay,
watched both of
okay,
those.
brainwashing. Okay,
Mm,
okay.
yeah.
And then you even recommended on, or you put something on a Facebook post or in a comment randomly. I forget her name right now. She escaped North Korea. She went through China, then she ended
Oh,
up in South Korea. She came.
Parks.
Yes.
Oh, is it she's I love her.
Yes, and so I saw you put that name somewhere, and then I went on a whole like week long like binge of her. I got
Yeah.
her book. I didn't end up reading her book, but I got thought at the library. I was like, oh yeah, I want to read this. But instead, I ended up watching a bunch of her talks and her story and her sharing
Mm-hmm.
it, and I was like, okay, I caught the vibe. I actually don't want to read the book after
Yeah.
watching like all these hours of her story. I think I'm good.
Yeah.
And holy snap! And that sent me into North Korea vibe, and then I spent a couple of weeks on North Korea. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa. And these are just like, look, I mean, some people would have already known all of this stuff before they even joined AA or while they were in AA. So it's
Yeah.
not that my learning exploration is going to be like necessarily universal, but I think anything, any system that you're stuck inside of, especially when you're reading like the same book, Alcoholics Anonymous, over and over and over again,
Yeah.
there's going to be things that you are stunted on because you were focused in this one area that's all baloney for so long. So I'm still playing catch up in a lot of, I feel like, areas of life because of my time drinking. I wouldn't have been as focused, and then my time in Alcoholics Anonymous. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm like freshy fresh. I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah. Did
I
you watch?
love it.
Yeah. Did you watch The Vow?
Yes, I watched that right when I left AA, or kind of years ago.
Yeah. So there were some episodes that I was just like, wow. I mean, I really went on a deep dive with that show, like with the event itself, and followed it as it was happening and watched him get arrested. And like, that's how I followed it so deeply because you could just see the similarities. And I kept saying,
Yeah,
like, look at him. Like, he doesn't drink either. Did he ever go to AA? Because the guy from Scientology, he did go to, it's proven that he did go to AA, and then he realized he could make money out of this thing that he created and did. What was
yeah.
that? What was his name again? Um, I don't
L.
remember.
Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard.
And then
But
you
but
know who studied L. Ron Hubbard when they were incarcerated and then came out and started their own fucking cult?
wait, who was that?
Charlie Manson. I
Really?
studied L. Ron Hubbard and his manipulation tactics and all of that while he was
Get out.
incarcerated. And as soon as he popped up, because he spent about half of his, well, more than half of his life in jail, but at that point, half of his life in jail. Then he popped out in summer of 67, summer of love, whatever, into the Bay Area and summer of love vibes and had
Uh,
all the techniques that he learned from L. Ron Hubbard's writings of how to essentially start a cult, although he probably wouldn't have thought about it in those terms, but how to control, I guess, women.
the movie about him, L. Ron Hubbard, was absolutely disgusting. I mean, it was well done. And I can't remember his name. He passed away too. He was an AA guy, and then he started using drugs again. Philip Seymour Hoffman, that's his name. Did you see the movie? So I saw that at the Landmark Theater down the street that's now gone because of COVID, and it was packed. And they never used the word Scientology so they could get this film made. And Kevin and I were sitting there, and you could see there were people that got up and they like left. Okay. So there was like five people who did this, like 15, 30 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
But he was so disgusting. Like it was just like, wow, oh, so crazy. These people and these guys who, gain this power and just get into that kind of control. But I think people want to belong. It's like back to what my
Hmm.
oldest son said to me when I left, and I was like crying. I was like, "I'm so stupid." Like, why did I? He goes, "Mom, you just wanted to belong. You were far away from all your friends in New York, and you were lonesome. You were lonely, and you were like 18. You were turning 18." And it happens to, and then one of the things that really helped me was blogging. And there was a lawyer on in the blogs, and he private messaged me and he said, "Monica, I have," or no, I think he emailed me, and he said, I went to Harvard. And because I was like, "Hey, bitch, I didn't go to college the right way. I should have done because of my drinking and my story." And he was like, "I went to college, then I went to law school. I have a degree, from Harvard, and I'm a successful." And they brainwashed me, Monica. So don't beat yourself up
Mm,
anymore about this. They can get anybody. And I
yeah.
went, "Okay, I heard you. I'm going to stop."
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
he helped
And
me.
yeah, I love that. And
Hmm.
what I want to say different though too about like what you've done and being like an OG dissenter with AA, like the first or one of the first, right, is that when as hard as it is to dissent about Scientology, especially because what the retaliation they might do, or about if you were going to speak out about any cult, as hard as it is to speak out about Nexium, like in the vow or whatever,
Yeah.
um, but there's a different edge and a different layer that goes even deeper with dissenting 12 step, because the rest of the world and culture will be like, yeah, you were in a cult, oh my god, you escaped, you're a hero, thank you for whistleblowing, blah blah blah. But when you do that about Alcoholics Anonymous, the culture also was going to shun you, and people who don't know what the fuck they are talking about because they've
Hmm.
never been to AA
Hmm.
themselves. They don't understand the ideology, but they still think they know how it is or what the hell it is, and they don't. But they
Hmm.
will still think you're wrong for speaking out about it. And
Right.
they don't realize that they have no clue, even though they obviously have no clue because they never went and never read the book. But that society at large and culture at large will still think that if you dissent, you're bad, wrong, and whatever. So it's kind of like it's the cult that nobody recognizes. So it's even harder. There's an
Hmm.
extra layer to dissenting because you're getting mainstream and medical and everything else still like having a problem with you, and then you making the film and trying to get your film out. It's like then you also have Hollywood, which has been incredibly indoctrinated and infiltrated. So that's why I think especially you as like an OG dissenter, it's like it takes major cojones, like the courage that it takes to like put yourself in the arena and do it when like I mean, you got to trust yourself because the people around you, most of them are going to say, why don't you just leave and shut up? And it's like, bro, because people are fucking stuck and struggling and suffering, and there's nobody talking about it.
People kill themselves.
Yes,
People kill themselves.
exactly.
People, young adult children die drunk in an apartment because the parent was told, "Don't talk to them, separate yourself, estrange yourself," and they're dead. So, there's stories were so many. But this would be a good way to wrap up. But gave me another idea for another conversation. Would be about Hollywood. It'd be about how deep, like it really. I mean, I'll just say one story where one woman and Kevin was like, "Oh, I think she's gonna love your idea of your movie, and maybe you want to mention it." And it was, it was at a social event, and she was like, "Oh, what is it about?" And I told her, and then she goes, "Oh, what? My father's sober 25 years. What are you talking about?" "Oh, did you ever go to a meeting?" "Oh, no, but my dad, it saved his life." And then there was the next one. "Oh, my boyfriend," and "Oh, my boyfriend," and I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many crazy stories
They
that,
don't know what they're
and
talking
it
about,
got
but they
worse
think they
after my
do.
movie in Hollywood. They got louder after my film, and I did not get major distribution, and neither did Claudia Christian, which I thought she was gonna, because she was an actress, she was a working actress, and hers was one little pill, and she
Hmm.
wasn't bashing it, but she didn't like it, but she spoke freely. And then even the business of recovery, I swore that both of them were going to get on the Showtime, maybe, like, right. But then I found that HBO was like filled with steppers, like at a hot, very
Hmm.
high level, if not, or stepper lovers. So you better forget that idea, Monica. Like, forget it. And CNN at one time, I met the head of the documentary. That was way back when they were making really good documentaries, and he was like, "What? Uh, uh, like you could just see no." And then when I was in, where the hell was I? Oh, I was in Toronto for trying to sell. Like you learn how to find buyers and finish the film, and it was the Doc Horn or whatever. And I meet the head guy for the biggest thing in the UK, the BBC, whatever it was. And this is when before everything is tainted. Okay, this is like 10 years ago or longer. And I walk up to him, and big guy. He's like, I don't know, 6'4" or something. And I goes, well, what's it about? What's it about? And I said, well, it exposes a really dark side of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he goes, well, what? Oh God, no, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. He just walked away from me.
Third rail. It's third rail shit.
So I was like, oh my
But
God.
guess what? I'm gonna talk about the third rail, bitch. I get, but and it's exactly what you said. It was somebody dying that woke me up to
Mm-hmm.
AA is harmful, and then I hadn't fully woken up, but that was the first crack in my brainwashing. Is I felt like AA killed somebody, and then that's also part of what your journey was with making your film. It was like you were seeing people dying, and yeah. And I don't know. I'm not the kind of person who's going to ignore like my intuition saying like leave or also say something about this, even though I know I can't speak about it because I'm
Mm-hmm.
anonymous, right? But it's like I'm not going to ignore. I can't choose a system's rule from the 1930s over my intuition. I have nothing if I do that. If I choose to protect a system over my intuition, a system that I don't agree with, that harmed me, that killed people,
Yeah.
what the fuck am I doing? So
Yeah, I heard you talk at the beginning of your it was like either your last video or the one before that where you talked to a woman again. And I just watched the very beginning and saw that story of the friend in Bali,
yeah,
right? Watched it again, watched how emotional you got, and thought about Brian, my sister's husband, briefly, who hung himself in 2011 as I began to take the film class to learn how to make a
yeah.
documentary, and how Brian hung himself. He just couldn't, he didn't want to go, but he wasn't helping him, and he was actually being targeted. He had to deal with sexual predators, and yeah. So on a happy note, it's not.
Yeah, well,
It,
it
it is what it
is,
is. Yeah.
well, it's people dying that definitely has given me some courage to say
Mm-hmm.
something because it was like people are fucking dying. How can I just not say anything? And then
Right.
at the point when we're deprogramming, the other message of me no longer focusing on, specifically on deprogramming is I don't want to center Bill Wilson at fucking all in my life anymore.
Right.
I don't
Right.
want to center alcohol. It doesn't mean I didn't drink for 17 years. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
centering alcohol. I'm not centering Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not centering deprogramming from Alcoholics Anonymous. Those journeys are complete. But of course, it'll still come up in my life. Just like if you asked me about my first relationship ever, my first boyfriend would come up in my life, but he's not centered in everything that I fucking say. So
Right.
for me, the last part of my deprogramming was having AA and all and alcohol be a part of my story, not my story. And that's so liberating and freeing. And I did it exactly when it felt right and timing wise for me. And if people had feelings about that, I understand. But I'm just following my intuition, which is the only thing I would recommend for other people is to think critically and to trust yourself. I'm trusting myself and moving forward. Not everyone's going to come with me on my next era. That's fine. My next era is about courage. I believe my entire era has been about fucking courage. The topic has just been deprogramming or freeway phobia or anxiety or whatever. It's always been about courage because fear's been dominating me and I want to break through that. So I'll be continuing to talk about courage in a more broader way. Sometimes that'll be about AA. And the bigger message there is that recovering from recovery isn't forever and to trust yourself when you're done. And I would say that the most of the people that I heard with that had opinions about me saying deprogramming is no longer centered, it's not over, it's not centered, is thank you for saying that. I've been feeling that myself the past month or two, and I'm really glad it's really validating to hear you saying
Yeah.
that because it almost gives me even more permission to move on. I don't know when anybody's recovery should be finished, but I think that we can trust ourselves when it is, whether it's anxiety, freeway phobia, grieving a loved one, anything we talked about, anything we didn't talk about. Fuck forevery is a trap.
Yeah, and I think it's great that people are watching you do it. Like they're doing it in real time. You're doing it in real time. It's happening for you. You've had this big following, a big community that you built of people that have been there with you, and then witnessing you saying what you just said, and that it's okay. It's really okay. So with that, we can wrap it up. I look forward to the next conversation with Kirsten
I
and
love
Monica. Thank. so much. Thank you so much.
I love vibing with you. I'm
Yeah, me too.
always down to podcast with you. I'm so
Yes.
glad we got to meet in real life. That was so special for
It was
me.
so special and so
And I
so
can't believe
random and
my
so
hotel was right by your house. That was bananas. It was so like meant even. It was like we were both randomly free at a weird early fucking hour on.
yes, it was so true, so crazy. It was like 6:30 a.m. and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to see how the deprogramming group is doing." And then it was like, "Oh my God, you're in
I'm like,
LA? What?"
do you want to hang out right now? You're like, it's 6:30. I'm like, I'm ready.
I was like, "Well, I could be there by 9." I know a coffee shop right on Beverly.
So funny. Yeah. So I look forward to a continued friendship, a continued collaboration relationship if you're up for it, and any other way that we can support each other and support other people that are moving through leaving AA or rebuilding their lives. I know you're also up to new things. You have other interests. Like we had talked about psychedelics and like how
Oh
they can
yeah,
be
we
for
should do one
healing.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm open to continue to develop and be friends with you and vibe and support other people in whichever way we feel inspired to because you're such a strong voice and it's an honor to be able to do this work with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten. And everybody out there, I'm going to put the links below for Kirsten's, all of her links and ways to find her. And we'll tune in. We'll be doing more videos and I'll be doing another one with Kirsten. We'll talk again. Thank you, everybody. And we'll talk to you later. See you next time.